Hi, my name is Alicia Morgan, and I am happy to be with you today. Today, I'm going to talk about guidance for overachievers, balancing ambition and well-being. Some background about me. I am an aerospace and industrial engineer. I've worked in aviation and defense. I've also worked in executive leadership in the nonprofit sector, supporting after-school programs, STEM education, as well as career and workforce readiness initiatives. I am also PMP and Agile Metrics certified. I have run award-winning programs managing high-performance teams. I'm a TEDx speaker. I've done a lot of amazing things and work with a lot of amazing people and organizations. So yes, I know a lot about being an overachiever. Today, I want to bring in the importance of well-being while being an overachiever. COVID-19 took us all by surprise, right? In 2019, I was doing a lot of amazing things, and then I found myself in a career transition. And as I took a step back, as many of us have done since the pandemic, I realized I was overworking myself and I was really burned out. And I didn't know the answer, but I knew I didn't want to return to being the same way. Now, everybody always talks about having a tribe, a group of people around you who look out for you and tell you when you need to take a step back. That came from a friend of mine who sent me some information about therapy options. I'd never been to therapy, and they were very low-cost options, and I know that that is a barrier for many people. So I investigated and started my therapy journey well over 3 years ago. During my first therapy session, within 5 minutes of the session, I was talking about overworking and being burned out. The therapist said something that still gives me chills right now. It was a question. Do you know that overworking is a trauma response? And I was thinking, what? When I think of trauma, I think of something real traumatic, something devastating, the loss of something overwhelming. I don't think of working that way. However, I thought about something else. I don't know where you are in your journey, where you grew up, or if you've ever heard this before. Have you ever heard work twice as hard to be twice as good, and failure is not an option because you may never get another opportunity? Well, that puts you in a state of trauma. And you have to take a step back and realize, am I going to keep doing this at the expense of my health and well-being, or I'm going to reassess? Then there's another thing I learned about. It's a psychological term called repetitive compulsion. It's a result of trauma. And it's like a cycle. You are repeating, not just competing, competing with yourself to do better. Like this time, if this similar situation happens, I'm going to be better at it. So you take that traumatic experience and you try to master it. Well, you can't master circumstances or situations. You can learn lessons and try to put them in practice, but you are never in control of the outcome. So here you find yourself again overworking in a state of repetitive compulsion. And everything I'm sharing here today, I will say I'm not a licensed professional. Make sure that you reach out to one to really unpack what I'm saying and figure out if it applies to you. And I will put some resources for you to further explore, but I just wanted to share. And so now, as you're thinking about overworking is this trauma response, I'm in a state of repetitive compulsion. So what do I have control over? And it's boundaries. You see, overworking, a part of that is not having great boundaries. You keep going and telling yourself, hey, this overworking is what I need to do. You have no boundaries. And then the result of that, when you get burned out, you get frustrated, you start feeling overwhelmed, and you may lash out with people. You may find yourself in more arguments than usual, more triggered than usual, because you haven't set boundaries. And those boundaries look like, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I have the capacity to do within reason. And just taking that step back for your mental health, of your own well-being. And those that are fortunate enough get to take sabbaticals, etc. And then I took a course from Yale University called The Science of Well-Being. What was interesting about that course, it said after $70,000, people aren't happier. And I know we're in a recession and that may feel ill-placed to talk about money, but what is the source of happiness for you? And actually that source said that some people would rather make a little bit of more money than the level of the playing field to have that competitive advantage of appearing to be above everyone else. So the course went on to say to learn how to create more experiences because you will remember those things. So remember, we're talking about overworking, this repetitive compulsion, setting boundaries, and learning more how to create more experiences that are memorable. Now, we're in a digital world. Last year, I decided to, all the pictures that I captured, all those high moments, I was going to put in a photo book. I do everything digitally. I don't know the last time I had printed out photos, but when I think about going to family functions or I go to someone's house and I see a coffee table with a photo album, I immediately pick it up. And I always wanted to know, like, what were you doing? How were you feeling? So think about that as well. Now, another talk about for overachievers, what I didn't know. So I told you I was award-winning. I'd done all these amazing things. And as I was going through different industries, I didn't realize I was seen as a disruptor, meaning there's a certain way that we should do things. And here I am coming in and not necessarily doing it the same way everybody else is. I have this transferable skills and I'm excited. I'm a driver. I want to succeed and achieve, and I do. And I've always heard success changes the people around you, but I didn't quite know what that meant. You might find some people resent you. And no matter who you are, you're going to need help one day. And so if you find yourself needing help and you were a high achiever, a high performer, and now you're in an area where you're not, then people may have a tendency to think very differently of you. So then you have to figure out, okay, so how do I feel about myself? And when I took that step back and I wasn't doing all the things that I used to do, some people were like, oh, you've kind of fallen off. What are you going to do next? And I had to let go of that overworking or that desire to explain, I'm taking a step back. I cannot keep performing the same way. You begin to realize that you may be efficient at what you're doing, but not necessarily effective to the sense of your well-being. So you need to have support, those tribe of people that will help you and set you aside, and realizing when you're overworking. In the news, I don't have to tell you this, we've seen so much in higher ed, the casualties of overworking and how the show just went on. And they always talk about people mourn people a little bit and then they just move on. So it's your responsibility to take charge of your well-being. And I am aware that you have to work to take care of yourself. And for me, as an overachiever, I've been working towards the journey of figuring out what thriving is. Because being in survival mode puts you in a state of hypervigilance. You're always trying to figure out how to prevent the next layoff of this. If you go outside and do your own business, where are you going to get your profit? Where are you going to get the next client? So you're always in this state, and it impacts your body, your well-being. I also encourage you to check your blood levels, your vitamin D, your iron, everything, and get a full blood panel to figure out where you are. So that is what I want you to think about. As my friend gave me that nudge, I want to give you that nudge. If there's anything in this video that resonates with you, to go explore and investigate. You don't want to be an overachiever at the expense of your well-being. You want to enjoy. The slowdown made me think about all the things that I had accomplished that I wasn't aware that I did because I kept moving. And that's another thing overachievers do. They keep moving and not necessarily take a true assessment of all that you've done and accomplished. So set those boundaries. You want to sustain success by focusing on your well-being. Take care of yourself. If you found this video enlightening in some way, please like, subscribe, and share, and leave a comment. We're in this together. Overachievers, take care of yourself.